Let's all go back in time for a minute, when life was much simpler and we didn't have a worry in the world. Think back to the earliest memories you have. Maybe you were 3 to 5, or maybe you even remember a time before this. Think about what scared you the most. Was it the monster under your bed? Or maybe just being in the dark? Were you scared mom was going to go to the store and never come back? Or maybe your biggest fear was falling off your brand new big kid bike. Whatever your fear was back then was most likely a normal fear that little kids have. Now imagine with me for a minute that you are 7. Suddenly, dad comes home from work, stressed out, frustrated, and angry with life. You happen to get upset because you didn't want to do your chores, and that was the final straw for him. He slapped you hard across the face. You went to your room sobbing, telling yourself it was a one-time thing because dad just didn't do things like that. You now have a new fear. A few weeks later, dad was having another rough day. You asked him to take you to dance. He just wanted to watch TV. He was overwhelmed and exhausted. So he yelled at you and told you sucked at dance, so there was no need to go to practice, because you had no hope of getting any better. Things just escalated from here. It didn't get better, it only got worse. And before you knew it, you were wearing long sleeve shirts and pants in the summer to hide the bruises, but you couldn't tell anyone because it was your dad. These are 2 of the 3 types of child abuse I will be talking about today. Child abuse is an intentional harm or mistreatment caused to any child under the age of 18. Child abuse takes many forms which often occur at the same time. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse are the 3 most common types of abuse inflicted upon a child. Understanding the different types of abuse will help everyone be more aware of what to look for. Child abuse and neglect contribute to a real health crisis in the United States and around the world. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, at least 1 in 7 children have experienced child abuse and or neglect in the past year, and this is likely an underestimated. The first type of abuse we will discuss is physical abuse. Physical abuse is when a parent or caregiver commits an act that results in physical injury to a child or adolescent, such as red marks, cuts, welts, bruises, muscle sprains, or broken bones, even if the injury was unintentional. The impact physical abuse can have on a child's life can alter their entire life, especially when the abuse comes from a parent or trusted caregiver. Many times a child will blame themselves for the abuse and feel like they need to keep what happens in their family a secret, which leads to the next type of child abuse, emotional or psychological abuse. This type of abuse is a pattern of behavior that damages a child's sense of self-worth and negatively impacts their emotional development. This is usually in the form of rejecting, threatening, humiliating the child, as well as name-calling and insulting them. It's usually subtle and slowly chips away at the child's sense of belonging or self-esteem. According to a report done by the Administration on Children, Youth, and Families, nearly 2.3% of children in the United States have experienced some form of emotional abuse. They believe that number to be higher because most cases are never reported. Emotional abuse is often goes hand in hand with sexual abuse because the perpetrator will try and lie to the child and tell them not to say anything about the sexual abuse. According to the Prevent Child Abuse article I read, every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services substantiates or finds evidence for a claim of a child's sexual abuse, and over 65,000 children are abused in the U.S. each year. Sexual abuse cases are very close to my family. When I was younger, I remember getting pulled into my parents' room to talk about someone else in our family touching us inappropriately. Fortunately for me, it never happened to me, but there were a few boys in my family that it did happen to, and it came from a trusted adult in our extended family. We as a family all had to go through months of therapy while they were building the case. The kids that this abuse happened to were too afraid of getting the adult in trouble, that it went on for years. This has stuck with me for years, and it didn't even happen to me. It affects more people than just the perpetrator and the victim. It affects families of both sides and anyone else involved. So what can we do about all of this? I feel like the most important thing we can do as a community is to report anything that seems suspicious, whether it's constant bruises on a child or if a child suddenly becomes withdrawn. Take note of anything that seems off and don't be afraid to report it and speak up for the children that seem defenseless. Many times a child that is being abused will start struggling in school. They may have a loss of self-confidence or self-esteem. They will try to avoid going to school and or riding the bus. The child may become depressed, have anxiety, as well as unusual fears. They may even show signs of rebellion or defiant behaviors. While these are just some of the warning signs, we need to be aware of the children around us. If suddenly they start inhibiting some of these signs, it may be time to talk to the child. Child abuse isn't a one and done thing. It can affect a child their entire lives. The Mayo Clinic summed it up well when they said, some children overcome psychological abuse of child abuse, particularly those with strong social support and resiliency, and with skills that can adapt and cope with bad experiences. For many others, however, child abuse may result in physical, behavioral, emotional, or mental health issues even years later. Some of those issues that may come up are learning disabilities, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, and many other things. These children need our help. They need a loving home and someone who cares. Preventing child abuse starts in the home. Offer your children love and attention. Develop a strong relationship with them that supports them and helps them with their self-esteem. Don't respond in anger. Take a break if you need it. Learn how to cope with stress in your own life. Never take it out on a child. Know your child's caregivers. Check references for babysitters. Always know who your child will be around. And teach your child how to stay safe online. With so many things taking place online nowadays, children need to know their boundaries and rules for online safety. If your child is secretive about online activities, that is a huge red flag. Bring it up to them in a calm, supportive way and let them know you care and love them. In conclusion, every single person in a child's life can make a difference. We all have a pivotal role to play. Because of this, we need to be more aware. We need to know exactly what child abuse is. By understanding the 3 types I discussed today, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, and how each one can affect our children, we need to be more aware of the signs: low self-esteem, violent behavior, poor academic performance, and withdrawing from activities they normally love, as well as disciplining our children thoughtfully and lovingly. After all this is done, if we come upon any suspicious activities or feel uneasy about something, don't be afraid to talk to the child or even take it one step further and alert the authorities. If we do all of this, our children and the children we encounter will be safer and happier.